But Fode's pride was wounded deep inside as the old woman's calmness seemed to mock him. The refusal to give him anything for his trouble felt like an insult, a rejection of everything he had done. His pride, which had always been his shield and armor, began to burn with anger, a fire that consumed his thoughts. He looked around and saw the growing crowd, their eyes fixed on him, as if waiting for his next move. In that moment, he felt as if he had no choice but to make his stand. The whispers of the crowd, some filled with pity, others with disapproval, only fueled his anger. How dare she, an old woman, treat him like this? Did she think she could walk away without paying for the trouble she caused? Did she think she could just wash her feet in the water he had worked so hard to clean and leave without offering anything in return? With a sharp breath, Fode stepped into the gutter, his foot sinking into the murky water. He stomped his feet deliberately, the filthy water splashing up and onto the old woman's freshly washed feet. The mud hit her skin with a cruel finality. "There," he shouted, his voice ringing through the marketplace, laced with scorn. "Now you're as dirty as you were before." His words were laced with venom, but inside there was a sense of satisfaction. He had shown her. He had taken control of the situation. She had humiliated him, but now, he would have the last word. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, murmurs rising among them. Some looked away in disapproval, while others stared in stunned silence, unsure how to react. They had never seen Fode, the boy known for his hard work, act in such a way before. His pride had overtaken him, and it was clear now that his actions had drawn a line, one that could not be crossed back. But the old woman said nothing. She didn't shout, didn't retaliate. She simply stood there, her frail body unmoving, her eyes filled with a sorrow so deep that it seemed to reach into the very core of Fode's being. Yet, she didn't speak a word of anger. She simply turned her back on him, walking slowly away, her every step seeming to carry a weight far beyond her years. Fode watched her leave, a strange sense of unease creeping over him. But he dismissed it, convinced he had done the right thing. After all, he had been the one wronged. His pride, his anger, they had been justified, hadn't they? Little did he know, the consequences of his actions were already set in motion. That night, as he lay in bed, he felt a cold chill spread through his body, and his mind began to race with thoughts of the old woman's eyes. They hadn't been filled with rage. No, there was something else there, something darker, something he could never have imagined. But it was too late now. The seeds of his fate had been sown, and soon he would realize the true cost of his arrogance. That night, Fode lay on his sleeping mat, staring at the thatched roof of his family's hut. The room was quiet except for the rhythmic chirping of crickets outside. The warm, humid air pressed against his skin, but despite the heat, he shivered. He turned on his side, trying to push away the nagging discomfort gnawing at the edges of his thoughts. "It's nothing," he told himself. "Just the guilt. I shouldn't have done that to her, but it's over now." But no matter how much he reassured himself, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The image of the old woman's eyes haunted him, not angry, not vengeful, but knowing. It was as if she had seen something in him that he had failed to see in himself. A deep sigh left his lips, then he closed his eyes, forcing himself to sleep. Sometime past midnight, Fode jolted awake. A sharp pain shot through his body, as if invisible hands were twisting his muscles. Sweat drenched his forehead, his breathing ragged. His skin burned, yet he felt an unbearable cold seeping into his bones. He sat up, wrapping his arms around himself. His limbs felt heavy, his head pounding with an unnatural pressure. His throat was dry, and when he swallowed, it was like swallowing fire. He tried to call out for his mother, but his voice came out in a hoarse whisper. A stronger wave of pain crashed over him, making him double over. His vision blurred, and his body trembled uncontrollably. His fingers twitched, his nails digging into his palms. Then, something else, something far worse. A strange itching sensation crawled across his skin. He looked down at his arms and gasped. Dark spots had begun to form along his forearms, spreading like ink bleeding into cloth. At first, they were small, no bigger than mosquito bites, but within moments, they swelled, bulging, pulsing, oozing a thick, dark liquid. The smell was unbearable, a mixture of rot and something bitter, something unnatural. Forde's breath quickened as he watched in horror. His skin felt tight, like something was trying to burst free from underneath. He scratched desperately at the boils, but the pain was unbearable, like fire spreading beneath his flesh. A sudden wave of nausea hit him, and he curled into himself, groaning. His mother stirred in her sleep nearby, but he couldn't find the strength to call for her. "What is happening to me?" he thought, panic rising in his chest. Is this a sickness? Is this a curse? Then, through the haze of his fevered mind, he saw them, shadows slithering along the walls, shifting in the dim light of the flickering lantern. The darkness whispered, voices low and unintelligible, calling around him like an invisible force. And in the silence of the night, he heard a single sound, a voice, soft and distant, but unmistakable. "You should have shown kindness, Fode." It was the old woman's voice. And then, the pain grew worse.